everybody to understand this. What occurred is this. If you look at it in the aggregate, it's under 3% tariffs across the board.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. How's everybody doing? I trust we are all doing fine. Anyway, welcome aboard. First one in the queue, El Señor AVQ, Michael Rudnan from Brooklyn, New York. Second in the queue, Patrick Magner from Houston, Texas. We also have in the house, El Señor La Señorita Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. How you doing, Yvette? Love to see you here. Bruce Pollard from Kingwood, Texas says, round us up and let's ride. I agree with you. We're going to get busy. We got a lot to cover today. Lee the Bearcat from Austin, Texas. Eric Hayes from Kingwood, Texas. We also have in the house Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain. Joe from Los Angeles, California. And I didn't get everybody in the Substack yet, but we have Donald Dorn Lopez, Lorraine Vidal, and Mary, Julie Spears and Hannah Keene, Jack Foley, and 4 others, F&Q, Diana Kelly, Cheryl Bartel, and 5 others. Sandy Cleland, G. Beard says, get in show. Yes, we are going to get this thing going and get this thing going right and fast. The first thing I want to start with, though, let me first see if I have Jay Ray's in the house from Houston, Texas. She says, Jay, I roar. You roar, my brother. You roar. Anyway, folks, let's go ahead and get started. Michael Rudder just want one message. Thank you, Michael, because I got a lot to cover. Says, Trump might claim China tariff victory, but this is capitulation. The president retreats, suggests he might negotiate elsewhere, but leaves corrosive uncertainty in its wake. It would support 10% tariffs in that funding. I want to give the bottom line on the tariffs, and that's where I am going to start. So let's get busy with that. I'm very much behind. I was trying to get a couple other videos done. I couldn't get it done in time, but you know what, guys? You guys rule. You guys rule, and I'm going to get this queued up so that we can get started with the tariffs in China. I'm going to do a cleanup version of what I did this morning on KPFT. So here we go in the let me get it right. Let's get it right. Let's get it right. Here we go. There you go.
I want everybody to understand this. What occurred is this. If you look at it in the aggregate, it's under 3% tariffs across the board, etc. Donald Trump jacked it up in some parts with Mexico and Canada to 25% on certain issues. Of course, if you're rich enough to own a car company, etc., you can make some deals with the president, which many of them did. And over time, they just keep going back to the well to get breaks. But the average person doesn't have the power to go to the president and say, hey, I need to negotiate a side order so that the stuff I'm bringing in from China, the stuff I'm bringing in from Mexico, the stuff I'm bringing in from Canada, the prices are different. We don't have that play for the average American citizen. So that went for Canada and Mexico to up 25%. For the rest of the world, the tariffs became 10%. So what we're seeing is, if you want to look at it at the aggregate, the taxes on products coming into the United States on the American people has gone from about 3% in the aggregate to 10%. That's over a 333% increase in the aggregate. I want everybody to understand that. So when everybody's happy that the tariffs from China, a deal that was established after I wrote the show yesterday, from 145% tariff down to 30%, okay, for 90 days while they negotiate. People say, oh, wow, big deal. Well, remember, that was from a tariff of under 3% in general, which is more than a 3 3,000%, over a 3,000% increase in tariffs for the average American. So people bringing in stuff from China now, instead of paying, you're paying 1,000% more in taxes for that product that you're bringing in from China, even with this deal that reduced it from 145% to 30%. This is just simple math, folks. But it gets worse. It gets worse. You know that little shopping Amazon type thing that a lot of small businesses used from China? It's called de minimis exemption. What it meant is that if you bought a product and you spend less than $800 and less of that product, right? You got the de minimis exception. That means you got to bring that product in tariff-free. So thousands of businesses, hundreds of thousands, millions of businesses got established. People working out of their homes, people working out of little shops or whatever. They would bring in cups and glass bottles and threads and these things, and they would add value to that and establish their businesses. They weren't paying tariffs on these products. So whereas big companies got very huge discounts when they brought in containers upon containers from China, these small businesses got the opportunity to compete because while they didn't have the volume of scales, they could actually bring in using the de minimis exceptions for people buying products at under $800, which means if you brought in, you could bring in, I don't know, maybe 1,000 cups that was under $800, and therefore you didn't pay a tariff. You could add value to that cup, sell it in Walmart, sell it anywhere. So that gave you entry into business, right? That de minimis tariff, I didn't see anything within the deal that they made with China to restore that de minimis exemption. What that means is that everybody gets that 30% increase in their costs, including the mom and pop store that doesn't have the power to go to the president and say, could you please exempt bikes? Could you please exempt this? Could you please exempt that? So as usual, the people who get screwed in this entire tariff deal are all the standard small businesses. Americans all pay that tariff. So folks, I need you to understand this. Donald Trump went ahead and created some extraordinarily high tariffs so that to the psyche of the non-thinking person, what then happens is that, wait a minute, I don't have to pay 145% tariff. I'm going to pay 30% now. Remember what that means, though. With the de minimis exemption gone, with all these other things gone, Donald Trump collects a huge amount of taxes to pay for the tax cut for the wealthy, because all that money that poor America, that middle class America pays goes into the coffers of the United States. It's not China who pays the tariffs. It's all of us who pays that tariff with the increased costs, with the increased price. So even if, let's say, the mom and pop store eats some of the tariff, your prices goes up, the business cost of mom and pop stores goes up, we all pay for that big, big tax cut that Donald Trump wants to give to the wealthy. If we sit back and understand the con against all middle class and poor Americans, we will prevent our Congress people from effecting not only the tariffs, because remember, it's not Donald Trump who really has the right to impose tariffs. It's the Congress. Donald Trump has the right to impose tariffs right now because he declared some sort of an emergency. But ultimately speaking, Congress has the right to determine what tariffs are going to be, if they're going to be tariffs, if they will reinstitute the de minimis exemption and all of that. That is the purview, the prerogative of Congress if they decided to hold up their constitutional duty. That is what you, the average American, has the ability to impose on your Congress, to tell them that you are not willing to pay for the tax cuts of the Trump administration for the wealthy, by you paying the bill, by giving your or hard-earned dollars to a whole bunch of wealthy people who already are building their wealth on your back. Folks, it's imperative. It is imperative that we engage. It is imperative that you learn that you have the ability to engage. Don't look at the news this morning and think there was some savings for you. There was none. At 145% tariff, trade between the United States and China ceased. It stopped. At 30%, it will continue, but it will be inflationary.
Exactly, it will be inflationary. Let me school our good friend Eric in the school. We're never for offshoring, okay? But we've had over 40 years of offshoring, and let me explain what that did, okay? When it comes to textiles, we no longer have the machinery in America that makes all the tons and tons of textiles that are now made in China, Vietnam, and all these other places. We don't have those equipments. We don't manufacture those anymore because we don't use them anymore. And where are they done? Overseas. So if we wanted to bring back textiles, we couldn't do it in 6 months or a year. If we wanted to bring back a whole lot of stuff being manufactured here, it's not going to take 6 months or a year. It means that we are going to have to repatriate equipment manufacturers, repatriate all these different parts of creating factories that we no longer make, that will take decades, given that it took decades to move everything off. So, look, tariffs are important to save industries. Tariffs are important to ensure that critical industries are kept in the United States. It's also necessary if you want to protect a particular sector. Let's give an example. If we wanted something that build missiles, if we started getting a whole lot of parts from missiles overseas, we want to make sure we have a local economy to do that as well. There are two ways to do it. You impose tariffs on those products to increase the price so that you can get a local manufacturing, or you can directly subsidize companies just to keep that skill set in the United States, which is a more prudent thing to do. All right? If we wanted, as an American citizenry, to bring back manufacturing, all types of manufacturing, that requires substantive investments that our government, we the people, so far has not been willing to do because the plutocracy, the wealthy people who owns the capital, refuse to do that. It's not a thing of the people. It's a thing of whether or not the plutocracy is going to invest the capital to do it. Anybody wants to discuss that? We're open the door. Welcome aboard, Carl Cox, who is here from, I forgot what town in Georgia. We also have Paul Fleming from Powder Springs, Georgia. We also have in the house, let's see, somebody else came in the local chat from, I think it's Long Beach, California. Who is it from Long Beach, California? From Long Beach, California. So come on in, guys. Lee Grant from Montgomery County is here as well as Harry Denson from Houston. Thank you guys for all being here. Love you all. All right. Michael Rodney says, I want to repeat my initial comment, which Egberto skipped over. I would support 10% tariffs if that funding was focused towards funding infrastructure investments, which could create so many new high-paying jobs and stimulate the regional economies where the new and upgraded infrastructure was created. But Trump is going to focus the tariffs on import tax funding, tax cuts for the wealthy. Exactly. Trump version of tariffs are a wealth transfer from the working class and the middle class onto the 0.1%. But let me partially disagree with you, Radnin. I don't want the person who is buying a computer system, who may be a student and otherwise, to have a 10% tariff that they need to do it. I say the people who have been scamming us all along. And when I explain to people in detail, not mad, not upset, just matter of fact, that the vast majority of the wealthy have created their wealth on our backs. I gave you my personal story when I sold my software to Boeing and the guilt I felt when I realized that they would pay anything for the software because ultimately it wasn't them paying it, it's always you paying it. You, the end user that doesn't have pricing power, will always pay the bill. And that is the things that we got to be cognizant of. That is what we have to be cognizant of. These big players, they go ahead and they can play with the money because ultimately you, the person that doesn't have pricing power, which is 90% of us or more, don't have pricing power. You pay whatever folks tell you it is. And people may say, well, supply and demand. Let's see gasoline not demanded. Look, it is really a scam. Anyway, got a lot of folks. I want you guys to listen to this. Let's see. Patrick says the commons are paying more than their share already. Exactly. Exactly. Carl Cox says, I'm for paying off personal loans without taxpayer money. You want mega corporations and the mega rich to pay off loans with taxpayer money? Call corporate welfare. You're always wrong. And that is correct. That what Carl Cox has to say there. You know, if you take a look at the PPP loans, right? They're going after this. They're going after student loans right now. But the PPP loans, like what MTG got and all these other folks got, they got off. That money just disappeared. They never paid it back. But the students, they don't get the breaks, right? And look, I am for paying the bills. I got a student loan. I paid every penny of my student loan back. But you know what? I am also empathetic. And I understand that going to school today is a lot more expensive than when I went. And I'm not talking expensive based on inflation. I'm talking about expensive based on worth as well. So we got to take all of that into account. Anyway, today I had the honor, today Donald Trump came out with, he's going to reduce the price of drugs. I want all of you to go ahead and read the executive order, okay? I want you to read the executive order. I'm going to put it up on the screen just so that you can see what it looks like. It's simple. It is not complicated. It's simple language, and it's a fraud. That whole executive order that you see me scrolling on the screen does absolutely nothing to reduce the prices as the president would want you to believe. And of course, I have it on the wrong screen. There we go. This executive order that I'm putting on the screen has nothing to do with really what it says it's going to do. And what I did is I contacted Alex Lawson, who is the executive director of the Social Security Works. I did a Substack Live with him today, and let me go ahead and replay that for you now, because it is important for us not to be snowed by this charlatan.
Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right on Egberto Off the Record. Thank you guys for chiming in. Thank you guys for being here. Today we're honored once again to have Alex Lawson. Alex Lawson is the Executive Director of Social Security Works, the convening member of the Strengthened Social Security Coalition, and a coalition made up of over 340 national and state organizations representing over 50 million Americans. As you guys know, today, Donald Trump released an executive order that seems to be populist in nature with regards to drug pricing. We need to simply let Americans know right off the bat that this is just one of the other scams that this president is known for. Alex Lawson, Director Alex Lawson, welcome to Politics Done Right on Egberto Off the Record. How are you doing today?
Great, Egberto. Always wonderful to join you. And yeah, it's a busy week.
Why is it a busy week? I mean, you mentioned that earlier before we started talking, and realized that it's going to be all coming down quickly, and we have to have our eyes open for what's about to be unleashed.
Yeah, so it's important for everybody to understand. The main event is tomorrow. Tomorrow, the Republicans have to advance their legislative agenda, which is done by Congress. This is the hard stuff. And this is where this is their proposal. They're going to steal 13.7 million people's healthcare, steal it so that they can give trillions of dollars in tax handouts to billionaires. That's what they're going to do tomorrow. Now, remember, you know this, your listeners know this. They've spent the whole time being like, well, we're definitely not going to cut Medicaid. We're not going to. They're just lying about their plans. Tomorrow, they have to sign on the dotted line, right? Yes, they're destroying Medicaid. Yes, that's how they're giving these tax handouts to billionaires. This is deeply unpopular stuff. But and that's not it. They also destroy SNAP. You're coming after the ACA. It's enormous. But all of it comes down to stealing our healthcare, our money, and giving it to billionaires. So they know that that's going to be deeply unpopular. So they put all three committee hearings on top of each other to just try to confuse the story or minimize the story so people don't actually know what's going on. And now you get to, why did Donald Trump roll out his executive order on drug prices? Donald Trump's numbers are they're underground. They're so bad on cost of living. And high drug prices are a disaster. Don't ever let any politics, get in the way of the clear-eyed understanding that high drug prices are a disaster for the American people. I moved to Washington, D.C. Over a decade ago to take on high drug prices. I spend every day fighting pharma. This is a real fight. So Donald Trump understands that it's super popular to take on pharma. The problem is Republicans love pharma, right? I mean, Joe Biden took on pharma and won. When he took office, he took on pharma and won. Medicare drug price negotiation. You know how many Republicans voted for that? Zero. You know what pharma hates? Medicare drug price negotiation. The Republicans right now are trying to advance a bill to weaken Medicare drug price negotiation. So Donald Trump is announcing an executive order that, I'm all for. Anyone who says they want to lower drug prices, I'm not going to say that's a bad goal. I'm going to say it's hard to do. And the executive order, you dig into what Donald Trump is actually saying he's going to do, it's not big enough. It's not actually going to lower people's drug prices. It's mainly hand waving. Just to dig into the policy briefly, it's the weakest form of international reference pricing, which is something that I spent years international reference pricing, getting into the conversation. We like international reference pricing. It says pharmaceutical corporations shouldn't be able to charge us in the U.S. way more, double, 4 times as much as they charge in other countries. We got a bill that Senators Merkley and Sanders are reintroducing on Wednesday that's real, a real international reference pricing bill. If Republicans want to make this happen, that's what you have to do. The executive order is just hand waving, smoke and mirrors, because Trump's numbers are subterranean right now. So he's got tariffs, the news on tariffs, and this EO are all a big PR push to try to win this week with positive messaging, because tomorrow they're going to try to hand wave away that they're stealing almost 14 million people's healthcare to give tax handouts to billionaires. So I know it's complicated, but it really comes down to this. The Republicans are not fighting to lower people's drug prices. They're just not. Right? That Donald Trump understands the politics of it, but the Republicans are not fighting to lower drug prices for the American people. It's not one of their priorities. Their priorities is giving tax handouts to billionaires, and they're going to take our healthcare to do that.
The executive order is titled Delivering Most Favored Nation Prescription Drug Pricing to American Patients. A tenet of this executive order claims that Americans are subsidizing foreign companies, given that foreign companies pay quite a bit less for our drugs than we do. Here is the thing. The foreign companies, governments fight the drug companies to get the better deal. The drug companies still make a hell of a profit, even at the pricing they give to foreign companies. Donald Trump trying to attach or equate we subsidizing foreign country is a false statement. Now, one of the things that he said during the press conference was kind of ironic because he tied tariffs along with this drug reduction bill by claiming check out what's going to happen, guys. When we add up the money that we have for the tariffs and the savings we're going to have on these drugs, it's going to make it much easier. I'm paraphrasing. It'll make it much easier for us to give the tax cut. Of course, as Alex pointed out, he means the tax giveaway to the wealthy folks. Explain a little bit about how that ties into him, to the ability for him to give bigger tax cuts to these wealthy guys.
Yeah, it's a lot of what Donald Trump is doing is really bully pulpit stuff, because at the end of the day, the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, is the scorekeeper on the Hill, and so on the Hill, the savings that you need have to be legislative, right? It can't be from anything other than cuts. That's why we know what the cuts are now to healthcare. 13.7 million people losing their healthcare. That's from CBO. So what Donald Trump is talking about is softer. It's sort of like PR or also the business press. And now, Egberto, this goes a little bit deep, but I know we can follow it.
We have a great listenership. These folks understand things.
So this is all about, you watch financial press, and what they talk about is bond yields. They talk about U.S. Treasury bond yields. And the underlying thing is, if you give giant tax handouts to billionaires, which Wall Street and the financial press are desperate for, they say, you have to give us trillions of dollars. Otherwise, we won't be able to buy our golden yachts. But they do say, if you don't pair that with actual cuts, then the bond market is going to punish U.S. Treasury bills and drive yields up. And this is actually the thing that spooked Donald Trump on the tariffs, right? It was the bond market that actually went haywire and started signaling that people were losing faith in U.S. Treasury bills. And if that happens, the whole house of cards comes down, the whole kit and caboodle. So what Donald Trump is saying is, I'm going to make sure that the bond yields don't go haywire. And on the legislative side, that means literally cutting people's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. They say getting entitlement spending under control. That's Wall Street speak for stealing our earned benefits. That's what's going on. So we have to really focus in on what is being proposed in the reconciliation bill on the Hill, and understand that what Donald Trump is doing is mainly PR efforts outside of that to build momentum for what's on the Hill, because what they're trying to do on the Hill is really hard for them to pull off. It's deeply unpopular amongst both the moderates and the hard right. The reconciliation bill that's being proposed, the moderates are like, we're going to lose our jobs because we will steal healthcare from more people than we won our elections by. Representative Miller Meeks from Iowa, she won her election by 800 votes, or somewhere right around 800 votes. If this goes through, something like 67,000 people in her district lose of her constituents.
Right.
So they'll definitely lose their job if they get this through. On the other side of the Republican caucus, you have, these arsonists who actually drive the party, who are saying, we need to hurt more people. We need to just totally destroy everything. And this is getting pretty close to totally destroying everything, but nothing is enough for the arsonists. So Speaker Johnson has a really hard balancing act to pull off to get all those votes. And you know what doesn't help him get the votes? Donald Trump's poll numbers being subterranean, right? When he's polling in the 30s and 40s on his handling of the economy, the thing that got him elected, he's way underwater on. He's underwater on cost of living, handling the economy, Social Security. These are the three top priorities, according to recent public opinion polling, and he's underwater on all of them. So he's just trying to deal with that, right? The executive order on drug prices, it's not going to actually lower people's drug prices. I am good with Republicans saying drug prices are too high, though, Egberto. I'm not going to fight them on that. I'm like, I want more. of them to say it. In the House, Republicans will not say that because they need pharma dollars. But it's the executive order is to try to take care of his sagging poll numbers on cost of living, that's drug prices, and the economy, that's the tariff announcement with China agreed over the weekend. That is just a 90-day pause, right? The trade deals take way longer than 90 days. And so this is, again, it's all about creating a narrative going into tomorrow that they're going to try to pull out for the rest of the week. And we have to be truth tellers and be like, don't fall for it. You have to keep your eye on the actual scorekeeper here. The Congressional Budget Office says, it's not about what Donald Trump said this morning. The Congressional Budget Office says 13.7 million people lose their health care to give trillions of dollars in tax handouts to billionaires. That's what's going on.
Well, you know what is so important, and I want to go a bit off topic because this is an extraordinarily important when you mentioned about bonds. I want folks to understand that before Trump came into office, the Treasury bonds were selling at about 3-point-something%. We're all the way up to 4-point-something% without making any changes to the budget at all, without any tax cuts or anything already. We are at 4-point-something% on the bonds. What that means is that we have increased our deficit spending for the next fiscal year by billions of dollars before we even start trying to cut taxes. What Alex is talking about there is more important than most understand. So yes, this is window dressing. This is smoke and mirrors from Donald Trump, but it's something that we have to be aware of, that if something happens this week where these guys come out and say that they have some deal with us, knowing that this is a fraud, think about what's going to happen to the bond going forward. Okay, give me a closer as far as what America should be doing, what our constituency or listeners should be doing in the next few hours, in the next few days, because of how substantive this week is going to be with regards to building that budget, if you will.
The key is hands off Social Security, hands off Medicaid, hands off SNAP, hands off Meals on Wheels. These are things, programs, systems that we've built, that we've earned. And the Republicans are trying to steal them from us to give tax handouts to billionaires. So we need to make as much noise as possible. There's a lot of stuff happening in Washington, D.C., but we also, Alberto, we've spoken about it. We say, get local. Go to your local Social Security office. Get your friends. Put a note, send a note to us at socialsecurityworks.org. I'm A. Lawson at socialsecurityworks.org. We'll help you find people to in your location. Go to a Social Security office. Get some signs. Hands off Social Security. Go to a local hospital. We haven't even gotten into it, but especially if you live in a rural or urban area, if this goes through, your hospitals are done. They're gone. Especially the rural hospitals, they're closing left and right now. So hands off Medicare, go to your local hospital. Call the news and politicians, especially if you live in one of these marginal Republican districts. Get your elected official on the record. What are you going to do to protect our hospital? What are you going to do to protect our Social Security office? Educate people about the consequences of what's going on. And of course, call your members of Congress. And for this, the reconciliation is both the House and the Senate. And we just need to make as much noise as possible. It's the House right now, but it'll have to go over to the Senate. They have disagreements in each house. So in the House, they don't agree as a party. In the Senate, they don't agree as a party. And then the two houses, Senate and the House, don't agree with each other. So we just got to get in there and talk to all of the moderates, everybody, and say, look, if you vote to steal our healthcare, we're going to vote to get you out of office, right? Like, just educate people as to what our plans are if they actually go through with stealing, and really think about what that means. Almost 14 million people's healthcare. What are they supposed to do? Die? Yes, that's the plan for them. There is no other plan. When you take a person's healthcare away, And you're talking about the most vulnerable in our society, the oldest of the old, people with disabilities, people in nursing homes. And there's worse stuff on nursing homes. They're going to lower the amount of staff in nursing homes at the same time they cut funding. They'll turn nursing homes into death traps. Your family members will not be safe at all in a nursing home. That's what's at stake here. So hands off Medicaid, hands off Meals on Wheels, hands off Social Security, and say that as loud as possible in as many venues as possible.
Folks, stay tuned to Egberto Off the Record on Politics Done Right. We've been covering these issues, including the closure of rural hospitals and why. We've gotten professionals to speak about that as well. And we are also locally here in Kingwood and throughout Texas. We're discussing that and having symposiums, etc., for people to find out about this. So folks are on the ball. We need all of those that are listening to us to be on the ball, as well as sharing all this information. Alex Lawson, who is, again, the Director of Social Security, the Executive Director of Social Security Works, thank you so kindly for having appeared on Politics Done Right on this short notice. You have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. That is important information. And yes, we got to go out there and fight. And Steigen, Bergen Creek, you're absolutely right. We have to be the ones who earn and take our democracy. And with respect to the prices for drugs, it is a lie to believe that these prices are necessary to maintain innovation. Most of the money from drugs don't go into innovation, doesn't go into research and development. They go into marketing and in the pockets of the shareholders and the bonuses that they pay. Most of the money, that's where it goes. Share innovation. Let me tell you something. Most of these products that are now drugs that are used, the precursors are generally developed with dollars from the NIH, with dollars from the universities that were given by the NIH or other grants. Remember that you have already paid most of the time for the precursor to the drugs or the drugs themselves. Most of the times you have already paid and invested into it after they purchase those drugs. They patent these drugs and they get 17 years in which they have exclusivity on that drug. And guess what else? They make a little change to the drug and re-up their patent. I mean, it's a scam. So when Donald Trump goes out and says, I am really, why are drugs, they're ripping us off, the foreign companies, we are paying for the development, and no, it's not true. The reality is what those foreign governments, Ozempic, that is 1/4 the price overseas. You know why it's that cheap? Because it's affordable, because it's cheap to make the drug, and their governments fight for them. Their governments don't take as many bribes as our government do. We like to go around the world and talk about how the rest of the world are full of bribes and we are so pure. We are more corrupt than most other countries. We just do it with suits and ties. All right, I don't know how many of you have heard, but recently Donald Trump has decided that our Afrikaners are being persecuted in Africa. So I did a piece over the weekend after seeing some disturbing news, and here is that piece. Donald Trump stopped virtually all refugees from coming to the United States, right? I mean, after all, we are flooded and we don't have the judges to process those people that are looking for asylum or anything like that. But guess what? As reported by the New York Times, something fantastical has happened. Something great has happened. Trump officials seek to bring first white Afrikaners to U.S. as refugees next week. Who are Afrikaners? Afrikaners are the white settlers of South Africa who went and colonized South Africa, took people's lands and made it their own, and had these people living in a system called apartheid, where they had no rights in their own land of birth, in the lands that is of their own. That's who these people are. But anyhow, because of some changes within land ownership in that country, South Africans are screaming that the Afrikaners, which are the white South Africans, are screaming discrimination. Remember, these are the people who
went into this land and started a process called apartheid, which took away all rights away from the original folks there, the black folks. So here we go. The Trump administration is planning to bring the first group of white South Africans it has classified as refugees to the United States on Monday, according to officials briefed on the plans and documents obtained by the New York Times. Although the president halted virtually all other refugee admissions shortly after he took office in January, his administration hastily put together a program to allow in white South Africans who he claims have been the victims of racial persecution in their home country. So the people who went into South Africa dominated the country. 7% of these people put 93% of these people in bondage, meaning no rights, kicked out of all lands that they had into something called the Bantustans. They are now the victims. The administration plans to send government officials to Washington Dulles International Airport in Virginia for an event marking the arrival of the South Africans who belong to the white minority Afrikaner ethnic group, according to a memo from the Department of Human Services. Look, many Afrikaners say they are denied jobs, targeted by criminals, and ignored by the government because of their race. Mr. Trump's support of Afrikaners dates back to his first term, but this year he came to their side after South Africa's president enacted a law allowing the government to seize land from private owners without providing compensation in rare instances. Stephen Miller, Mr. Trump's deputy chief of staff and the architect of his immigration agenda, told reporters outside the White House on Friday that what's happening in South Africa fits the textbook definition of why the refugee program was created. He added, "This is persecution based on protected characteristics, in this case, race. This is race-based persecution." So when other people come over from other countries, the global South, that have where the minority culture have them in bondage and they run over to the United States, that's a problem. We don't have open doors for them. We don't send airplanes to that country to bring them over. I mean, think about these special refugees. America is going to use all of our tax dollars to go out to South Africa and fly those refugees into the United States in a very dignified fashion. Many of our brothers and sisters from the global South, they walk through the Darién jungle in Panama. That is very hard to cross. They walk through Guatemala. They walk through Honduras. They walk through Mexico in dire straits. Walk thousands of miles to get to the United States. And when they get to our border, some took boats from Haiti into South America and then walked the trail up to America. And when they came to America, this is how they were greeted. DHS says some Border Patrol agents use unnecessary force on Haitians at Texas border. Look at that picture. Watch our Border Patrol agents on horses with whips, demonizing, dehumanizing these refugees that are running from similar things that these South Africans claim they are, even though their claims are not true. These people's claims from Haiti, these people claim from Venezuela, these people's claims from many of these other countries are true. They are real refugees. White South Africans are not refugees, but we are going to send taxpayer planes to bring them into our country, and we are going to get them resettled. How are we going to do that again? Check this out. The resettlement of refugees is normally funded in large part by the State Department. But Mr. Trump suspended that program when he took office. But for the white South Afrikaners, so the administration will be relying on other agencies that has traditionally supported refugees. A refugee office in the Department of Health and Human Services. The office has been reaching out to organizations assisting refugees in the recent days to prepare them for the arrival of Afrikaners, according to a department memo by the Times. Special treatment. They're going to get the roses and the petals to come into our country. The lever reported this week on the imminent arrival of Afrikaners in the United States, and the administration planned to use emergency refugee funds to assist them. The administration is preparing to help the Afrikaners find temporary or longer-term housing and basic home furnishings, essential household items, and cleaning supplies, according to the memo. The administration is also planning to help the Afrikaners secure groceries, weather-appropriate clothing, diapers, formula hygiene products, and prepared phones that support the day-to-day well-being of households, the memo said. Wow. The Trump administration should be ashamed that these memos leak, but they wanted this memo to leak because they think there's a segment of the American population that is going to say, yes, bring those Afrikaners in and dump those people south of the border from the world south, from the majority south. Now, before we close here, many are going to try to make that excuse that, well, what's happening in South Africa is now that South Africa is taking away the people's lands. Let's get the truth out there, though. That's not what's happening, okay? According to Al Jazeera, and good reporting, last month, South Africa adopted the Expropriation Act, a law helping the state take back land that is in the public interest, with agreement to address disparities in ownership that were caused by decades of racist apartheid rule. And we covered that earlier on. Remember, apartheid were foreigners going into South Africa, throwing the people who own the land off the land, taking their land, and forcing them into these things called Bantustan. Okay, they threw them onto bad lands. That's how we got places like Soweto and other places in South Africa. Ramaphosa defended the law, explaining that it serves to facilitate public access to land rather than act as of confiscation instrument. South Africa, like the United States of America and other countries, has always had expropriation laws that balance the need for public usage of land and the protection of rights of property owners. Ramaphosa, that's president, elaborated in a statement following Trump's statement. Now, the Expropriation Act was signed into law by Ramaphosa in January. It would make it easier for the state to expropriate some land with the aim of addressing racial disparities in ownership after apartheid in 1994. South Africa's government says the law does not allow it to expropriate property arbitrarily and that the landowner must reach an agreement. The government asserts that the law enables a constitutionally mandated legal process and that it allows for expropriation without compensation in circumstances deemed just and equitable and in the public interest. And I can give a good example of what that should be. Suppose some Führer comes into South Africa and he looked at all those huge mountains across South Africa and he says, I claim that land is mine. And he takes over 100,000 acres and he deemed it his and makes sure, because they ruled in an apartheid system, that land is his or hers. I don't see why the government should, the government should say that guy really owns that land, the land that he took for free, one that he just commanded that I own. The hysteria about expropriation is mischievous, he said, emphasizing that the law does not allow for land grabs as alleged. Nduketobi explained that Act permits nil compensation for land deemed necessary for the public good, which may include properties that is unused or poses risk to the public. Think about it. You come into a foreign country, you conquer it, and you say, those mountains are mine. The government may say, no, that's a natural resource that should belong to everybody. How can you come into this land and just say it's yours? You can't. That will be expropriated justifiably. The mischief has been misrepresentation, as if to say expropriation has never happened. Guess who expropriate lands? Right here in the United States. Oil companies want to build pipelines across farmland, and there's something called eminent domain. Right here in the United States, eminent domain has been used to take the land of many a farmer. Eminent domain with poor compensation have been used to take the land of many a black farmer, etc., in this country under the guise of some sort of constitutionality. Let's be clear. Those white South Afrikaners are not refugees. They are not refugees. And let's be clear. what is the history of land disposition in South Africa? The disposition of people from their lands, here it is, particularly Black and Indigenous people, was a core feature of South Africa's history, deeply intertwined with the country's brutal apartheid regime and preceding years of colonialism. A pivotal law, the Natives Act of 1913, restricted Black South Africans from purchasing or renting land in designated white South Africa, resulting in the forced removal of indigenous population. So a Afrikaner can say, I declare that land mine. Okay, it's mine now. I'm kicking off all you Black folks that were indigenous to this land. Get away. It's ours, and they throw you into what's called a Bantustan. South Africa's government had grappled with land ownership issues since the advent of democracy in 1994, with land reform discussions becoming increasingly relevant in political discourse. White South Africans made up a little over 7% of the population, according to the latest census, but they own more than 70% of all privately owned farmland in the country, according to the government data in 2017. The ongoing disparities in land ownership, which remain skewed largely in favor of a minority, have brought a need for reform and expropriation, experts say. That should not even be debatable. I mean, when South Africa got out of the bondage of apartheid, everybody thought it was going to be a bloodbath for the oppressor. Instead, they created not a conference, but they created a reconciliation panel, and people got to live their lives, and people got to beg for atonement for what had been done. And there was no retribution, no killings, no any of that based on racial animosities or anything like that. It was one of the best transitions from an oppressive, racist system to a system where you had true democracy. In fact, the South African Constitution makes a mockery, makes our Constitution look, well, the age that it really is, because of how well written it is. Now, because again, we have a property document for a constitution. They have a constitution that takes humanity, the environment, and everything into consideration. Now, here's the deal. Donald Trump bringing these folks to America is a message. It is a message, and it's a racial message. The treatment, the catering to these Afrikaners who claim to be, seeking asylum because of some sort of oppression, which isn't true, compared our Haitian brothers and sisters, our south of the border brothers and sisters from Venezuela, from Cuba, from other places that really have issues. It shows the difference in treatment, and it is quite clear. This is what we're up against, and this is what must be mitigated. A president like this remaining in power is a clear and present danger. He is putting us in a case where nothing good can come of this other than creating the animosities we have been trying to solve for centuries. Shame on Donald Trump for allowing or for listening to Elon Musk, a South African himself, who is a bastion of lies like the president is, to promote and teach this president a false history based on his own apartheid-loving self. Absolutely so. His apartheid-loving self. And yeah, Agolf Twitler says, Peter Thiel. Yeah, that was the founder of PayPal. You're correct, and created that. But anyway, folks, so by the way, the plane has already landed in Dulles in DC, okay? So we now have new members of America, that group of Afrikaners that claim they were discriminated against, that Donald Trump sent a taxpayer. Think about this. Think about if Donald Trump sent a taxpayer plane, a charter plane paid by taxpayers to Haiti to bring back those Haitians that are really, really under duress, really being persecuted. What do you think Fox News would do? Dede Bell says the hypocrisy is revolting. And also, thank you for reporting on that topic. I had to.
That one hit me hard. I think it was on Saturday night when I actually found the story in Al Jazeera. And it was like, oh my God, I know this was likely coming. And to see that it was official and to see that they have landed in America a few hours ago, it's amazing, right? Paid for with your dollars. You just brought in some refugees. But technically speaking, we are not accepting refugees, people. Anyway, we're coming close to the end of the show. Look, we had there's so much more that I had to cover. I have some other videos that I'm preparing, including a very important talk I did this morning on KPFT that I'm cleaning up right now, and I'm going to put it out there. But folks, we got a lot of work to do, and let's give some honor again to our good friends Steigen. What's that person's name? Steigenberg. I always get your name, Steigen Burger Creek, because I hear that I hear the urgency in Steigen's voice, the fear in Steigen's voice. I mean chats, and I want to tell you, Steigen, it's not about fear. Do not have fear. Do exactly what you said. That is, we all have to engage. By the way, Trump's numbers are down. It is important that you engage your congressperson. All right, folks, we're going to be getting out of here shortly. But before we get out of here, I want to ask those of you who are listening to the program to please consider supporting and becoming paid subscribers of our newsletter, Egberto Off the Record, a subsidiary of Politics Done Right. Because again, I should say it the other way around. This is subsidizing Politics Done Right and all the other write-ins that we do. To do that, just go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. I put it in both chats. That is how we're able to continue doing what we do. Without your support, we can't do it. There is one other option. Well, there are many options, but if you go to politicsdoneright.com/support, that offers all the different ways in which you can support our program to ensure that we can continue doing this. You can support us by becoming one of our patrons. You can support us by buying our books, and all of that is in the politicsdoneright.com/support. But in order to get to the next level on Substack, we need about 600 new subscribers. And we don't have them yet, and we're building it very slowly. But we need about 600 more subscribers. So if you can, a coffee a month is what it costs to subscribe to us, or a discount if you decide to do it on a yearly basis. You can really give us the assistance that we need to get more folks helping us with the videos, helping us with all the information. You see the amount of work that we do here. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. If you become a paid subscriber, remember you get to read all of our books free of charge. And what does that look like? I'm going to spend an extra minute just to show you what that looks like. Of course, you see the books on the screen, but if you really want to see what you get for those who are paid subscribers, let me get that onto the screen real quick, and let's do this. Paid subscribers, para ver. Let's go to the screen. I need to get to that screen. Paid subscribers, where are you? There we go. All right, paid subscribers, and let me put it in the middle. Paid subscribers get a chance to read all 5 of my books, right? And here are the 5 books. Let me take that off the screen first. All 5 of my books. The main one, as I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom, How to Make America Utopia. It's worth it, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relative Friends and Neighbors. You get to read all our books, all 5 of them, free of charge on our Substack. And how exactly does that work? Well, some menus become open as soon as you become a paid subscriber. And when you go to My Books, everybody can see this right now. When you click on any one of those books, when you're paid subscribers, you get to read any one of these books. And I can tell you, there's a lot to learn, about our economic system, about, when I speak about these issues, a lot of people think it is smoke and mirrors. No, it's not. It's real. We can actually make America that better America. So please consider becoming paid subscribers by going to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, or go to politicsdoneright.com/support, where you have all the different ways to support us. Okay, I'm late. Got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.